Men have always tried to encode secrets. Military communication, love letters, forbidden knowledge. And most secret text is eventually decoded. But among all of history's cryptic writings, one stands out. It's the world's most mysterious book, written by an unknown author in an odd alphabet, and brilliantly illustrated with puzzling images. For centuries, it defies all attempts to unveil its secrets. Now, for the first time, experts analyze the ink, pigments, and parchment of the Voynich Manuscript. What secrets are hidden between these lines? Who wrote them? And why?
Many people believe the Voynich Manuscript is nothing but a hoax and is full of nothing but gibberish. Experts in the field have studied the drawings, the cipher, and the language, and all the facts they have found point to the manuscript being a hoax. Inside the Voynich Manuscript are pages of elaborate illustrations, most of which do not appear to symbolize anything real.
Most of the plant illustrations are unlike any natural plant. Details are out of proportion or reminiscent of parts of the human anatomy or of abstract symbols. In fact, most of the illustrations appear detached from conditions of reality.
Now let's take a look at the cipher.
200 pages of text have been written without even a slight error, an almost superhuman feat. This raises suspicions. There's only one source of information about the discovery of the manuscript: Wilfried Voynich himself. Perhaps this successful dealer in antique books could not resist the temptation of fabricating such an odd and extremely precious book. Several people suspect that Voynich is a fraud.
Wir haben heute mit verfeinerten Frequenzanalysen und
Today, with enhanced frequency analysis and computer-assisted decoding methods, we can easily crack coded texts up to the 17th, even the 18th century.
ohne weiteres zu lösen. Wir brauchen dazu eine kritische Masse.
For this, we need a critical mass. 30 characters are not sufficient.
Lässt sich vorausgesetzt, dass
Given that, and given that the plain text made sense, any coded text from that period can be deciphered.
jederzeit ein solcher Klartext auch wieder entschlüsseln.
So, does this profusion of characters represent a text that makes sense? To find out, all 170,000 characters of the manuscript are electronically evaluated. The distribution pattern of each character is then compared to known patterns of natural languages. The result: some characters occur more often than others. Like, for instance, particular vowels in European languages. However, most elements of the Voynich text do not correspond to the phonetic patterns of any natural language. In spite of all the modern technical tools that have been applied, the mysterious manuscript is still a mystery. The code remains uncracked.
me, the fact that it's still not been cracked by modern cryptographic techniques makes it highly unlikely that there's any real cipher in there.
So, the Voynich manuscript may not even be an encoded message. The distribution patterns point to a different theory.
Some of the features of the manuscript were very unusual in terms of human languages, but were exactly the things you'd expect if somebody was producing something artificially and trying to make it look like a language.
Gordon Rugg thinks the unknown author merely wanted to create an impression that the book contained something mysterious. For this purpose, he may have used historical codes.
They assumed that to create something the size of the Voynich manuscript as meaningless gibberish would take decades. If you try making up gibberish out of your head, it's surprisingly difficult. You start repeating yourself over and over again. That would be easily detectable.
But Professor Rugg has an incredible new theory. Creating the manuscript was actually easy. Today, he's going to put his theory to the test.
I think that what we'll see today is large quantities of text coming out, text which has got similar characteristics to Voynichese in different ways. I think another thing we'll see today is how quickly text can be produced using this method, whether or not it would be feasible to use this method to produce a meaningless hoax for profit.
Gordon hopes his experiment will reveal how the author created an indecipherable manuscript quickly and easily. To begin, Gordon uses 3 world-class calligraphers. Working on a table consisting of 600 blank squares, they copy random syllables from the manuscript into the squares, leaving some of them blank. 3 squares are then cut in random positions from heavy cardboard called a grill. The grill is then placed anywhere on the table. This simple technique reveals a Voynichese word. Finally, the word is copied onto a page of manuscript. The grill is then slid to the right and repeated. Using this method, the entire Voynich manuscript could be created in weeks.
These people have produced text that looks like Voynichese. They produced it fast. At this speed, you'd be able to produce the entire manuscript in a matter of weeks with a team like this. So I think this shows that my method's certainly feasible.
The experiment suggests that the author could have created the Voynich manuscript quickly and out of greed.
Some people are going to try to convince you that the Voynich manuscript isn't real, but we did some experiments to test that it is. In this experiment that we ran, there's 3 ways to prove that it's very similar to human text. The first way is Zim's law, and this is going to test the frequency of the words in the text. As you can see here, this is the Voynich manuscript, and this is true gibberish. It compares closer to the Greek and English true text. The next test we ran is entropy, and this is going to test the predictability of a word occurring after another specific word. Now, in actual English literature, the entropy is from 9 to 10. In the Voynich manuscript, it fell into place in 10 to 11, and gibberish is 12. So there, it overlaps more the English human text versus the gibberish. The last test we ran is the letter serial correlation. This uses mathematical equations to find the change in S, which is based on the occurrences of letters in the text. Here, we have the Voynich manuscript. That's going to be compared to gibberish. And here's the English text here. You can obviously see the correlation between the Voynich manuscript here and the English text here, and how gibberish is very different from the two. Overall, this helps prove that it's very much like a human literature or actual human text instead of just made up gibberish. The Voynich manuscript is real is because of the effort put into it. If you look at it, it's 220 some pages long. That's a lot of writing to make up, as well as the pictures are pretty graphic. Lots of pictures, a lot of time, a lot of money put into it too. I don't know who in their right mind would possibly create something like that for no reason at all.
Many people believe that Roger Bacon was the writer of the manuscript. But unfortunately, this is not possible. The reason for this is because, well, as you see, in 2009, we did a carbon dating of the manuscript and found out that it was actually created in the 15th century, not the 13th, when Roger Bacon was alive.
Today, for the first time, we can convict the 16th century dazzler by using modern technology. Greg Hodgins of the University of Arizona will take several samples of the Voynich manuscript. The manuscript is written on animal skin, so its age can be precisely determined. Like any organic material, parchment can be dated by the radiocarbon method. The book has never been scrutinized in this way. Since relatively large samples are needed, the radiocarbon test had previously been rejected. But now, for the first time ever, it is possible to determine exactly how old this mysterious manuscript really is. To ensure accuracy, Greg Hodgins takes 4 samples from 4 different pages. A few weeks later, the lab results arrive with a big surprise.
So there are the 4 measurements from the 4 samples that we took from the Voynich manuscript. And as you can see, the dates are very tightly clustered together. It gives a picture of it being created in a relatively short period of time. Moreover, because they're so tightly clustered together, it means we can treat it as one object that's been dated 4 times, and that increases the precision of the measurement. So at 95% confidence, we can say the age of the Voynich manuscript is 1404 AD to 1438 AD.
So obviously he has written out, he cannot have written it. I'm sorry for all of you believers, you're wrong. Another reason that it could not have been him was his colleague, John Dee, has a very in-depth diary of everything that he has written. Everything that, and he is the owner of many of Roger Bacon's works. Not once is this manuscript talked about in any of his diaries. And it could not have been him. Another theory is that Raphael Minkowski wrote it. This is believed because he was one of the only people to have been known to have actually owned the book. The very first person was Emperor Rudolf II. Minkowski was a very close personal friend of the emperor. This means that he could have easily given it to him as a gift. Also, Minkowski was a writer at the time. He was a cryptographer at the time, meaning he understood languages and how they connect with each other and how to break codes. He was a code breaker, which means he could have easily made his own.
Wilfried Voynich himself discovers the first clue leading to the anonymous author. While making reprographs of the original Voynich manuscript, an item once invisible accidentally appears. Someone has written something on the first page. The words were scratched from the parchment, but under ultraviolet light, traces of ink become visible.
It's very faint, but I can see a T.
T starting to dip in its...
There's something underneath.
Jacobus a Tepenich. It's fairly clear. Number 19, maybe.
Jacobus a Tepenich is a traveling doctor and expert in medical plants in the 17th century. His preparations are famous far and wide. In 1608, he is summoned to Prague by Emperor Rudolf II. The emperor suffers from depression and melancholia. Tepenich's famous herbal extracts will hopefully relieve the monarch's distress. Tepenich experiments with herbs. He grows them, distills extracts, mixes them with alcohol, and makes a fortune. His alcoholic remedies seem to inspire the emperor's well-being. To thank Tepenich, the emperor promotes him, appointing him imperial chief distiller. But why would a doctor encode his recipes?
Groups who were involved in the practice of healing could easily get themselves in trouble with the church and with authorities.
Kevin Repp is the curator of the Voynich Library's manuscript collection.
Alchemy was very closely related to the growth of science in the early modern period, and yet at the same time, alchemy was considered to be an extremely arcane topic, meaning the information that was recorded in these texts was often considered to be extremely secret.
Even though it has been proven by carbon dating that Roger Bacon cannot be the author of the Voynich Manuscript, some people still believe this to be true.
The Roger Bacon scientist, he was an English philosopher. He was more than capable of writing this book, the Voynich Manuscript. It was because not only was he a physician, which were the only people at the time that had access to any library in the world, and they could actually be smarter than the regular pedestrian, but he was also studied languages. It is believed that he quitted being a physician because of the church, because his discoveries and his foundings, when he studied languages and nature, were getting to a level where the church was going to start pursuing him for his livings. So, which made him really scared at the moment of what he was discovering on languages and whatever he was discovering in these plants.
So does the manuscript hold meaning or not? We will never know until there is a breakthrough in studying it.
The Voynich Manuscript remains what it has been for the last 600 years. It's a hall of mirrors reflecting each researcher's own imagination, without ever allowing him a glimpse into its inner secrets.
I have no idea what to say.
Oh, that's not big. I was wondering how it gets in my nose there.
It actually goes through the nostrils in this thing.
Really? Yeah. Fuck, I get nervous. Let me just get it fixed in my head. Fuck. You know what I'm saying? For his